All right, let's talk about Swiss salary law. We're going to cut through the confusion, bust some common myths, and get right to the essential rules that decide how, and just as importantly, when you get paid. Let's make sure you know exactly what your rights are. So, let me ask you something right off the bat. Are you absolutely positive your salary is being paid by the book? It's a huge part of your job, and trust me, you might be surprised by what the law actually says. At its heart, a Swiss work contract is a really simple deal. Think of it like this. Article 322 of the Code of Obligations says you do the work, and in return, your employer has to pay you. This salary, it's not just some minor detail, it's the core of the whole thing. No salary, no work contract. Period. First up, let's dive into one of the biggest misconceptions about working in Switzerland, the whole idea of a minimum wage. So here's the deal. Switzerland actually has a kind of split system. On a national federal level, there is no minimum wage. In fact, voters said no to the idea back in 2014. But, and this is a big but, individual cantons have the power to make their own rules. And a few of them have done exactly that. So, which ones are we talking about? There are 5: Geneva, Neuchâtel, Jura, Ticino, and Basel. If your job is based in any of these 5 cantons, then yes, there is a legal bottom line for what you can be paid. And to put a real number on it, just look at Geneva. They've set their minimum wage at 24.65 Swiss francs an hour. This isn't a suggestion, it's a hard rule that actually overrides any private work contract or other agreement you might have. Okay, so what if you're not in one of those cantons? Does that mean it's a total free-for-all? Not at all. There are still some absolutely crucial fair pay rules that apply to every single employer in Switzerland. This one is fundamental, and the law is crystal clear. Equal pay for work of equal value. This is not a suggestion, it's a legal right. If your skills, your training, and your experience are the same as a colleague's of a different gender, the law says your pay should be the same too. And this principle of fair pay is also there to protect the local job market. It means that foreign and posted workers have to be paid a salary that's normal for that job in that specific location. This is all about preventing what's called wage dumping and making sure there's a level playing field for everyone. Okay, so you know what you should be paid, but when should that money actually hit your bank account? Now, this is an area where what the law says and what a lot of companies actually do can be two very, very different things. Let's be super clear about this. Article 323 of the Code of Obligations is what's called a mandatory provision. It says your salary has to be paid, and by that, it means the money has to arrive in your bank account by the very last day of the month, not the day your employer sends it, the day it lands with you.
And this is where it gets really interesting. I bet some of you are thinking, wait a minute, I always get paid on the 5th of the next month. And yeah, that's super common, but here's the thing, it's technically not legal. Because Article 323 is mandatory, your work contract can't just decide to ignore it.
Now, let's get into some of the more complex parts of salary law. We're talking about the extras, like bonuses, and some very specific exceptions to the normal rules. Okay, it is so important to know the difference between these two. A gratification, what we usually just call a bonus, is typically an optional reward. The employer gets to decide if they pay it and how much. But a 13th month salary, that's totally different. It is a contractual obligation. It's just a part of your annual salary that gets paid out at a certain time, and it's even calculated pro rata if you leave mid-year. But here's a really fascinating twist in Swiss law. Let's say your employer pays you a gratification, and they do it consistently for 5 or more years in a row without writing every single time that it's voluntary. Well, it can actually turn into an acquired right. And that means it's not optional anymore, it's become a legally required part of your pay. All right, let's talk about something that's pretty rare, but it is legally possible: salary withholding. As long as you agree to it, an employer can hold back part of your pay. Think of it like a security deposit to cover any potential damages to things like company gear or equipment. Now, there are super strict rules for this. First, you have to agree to it. Then, the employer can only hold back a maximum of 10% from each paycheck until they hit the total legal limit. And what is that limit? It's 25% of one single monthly salary. So if you earn 4,000 francs a month, the most they can ever hold in total is 1,000 francs. And of course, if you leave the job and everything's fine, they have to give that money right back to you. So at the end of the day, knowing the law is what gives you power. We've gone through the minimum wage myth, the rules on equal pay, and those strict deadlines for when you have to be paid. So the final question is really for you. Now that you know all this, how does your own contract stack up?